So, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Can we have more guests joining? Okay. So, thanks to all of you for joining. We are going to discuss today about a program for nuclear fusion that we have started recently and how it's going to impact globally. I'm going to give a short presentation of about 10 minutes. Before I do that, I'd like to introduce the guests here. So we have here Dr. Akash Singh, but he's the one who actually suggested us to start this program towards the end of October. So when in between we were out of touch and Corona period happened, and then suddenly October Akash popped up this question. So Akash is an entrepreneur. He has done a lot of inventions. He has a large number of papers. I'm not going to read out all of that. But he has the courage to go into various different areas like biotechnology, medical devices, engineering in space. And this nuclear fusion thing has come as a complete surprise to all of us. So thanks, Akash, for this. Paul joined us in the very second meeting we had. He is the CEO of Stanford Ventures. Just to clarify, Stanford Ventures is not linked to Stanford University. I think that was the clarification Paul wanted me to make. But he is supported, in addition to his own professional work in semiconductor area for more than 25 years, he supported companies in energy, agriculture, water, transportation, medical, and healthcare, and other areas. And more than that, he's well connected to all over the world, to various investors and influence leaders. And that is very, very handy for all of us. Mr. Vijay Jain has just joined in. We're just introducing the other panelists. So Vijay actually, for Indian audience, he was responsible for Jio's fixed line rollout. And I think set a record. I think in about 3 months, 100 million subscribers were created. But he's a senior technocrat. In fact, a lot of communication devices that we're using has come out of his research. He was abroad for a long time. I shared institute with him, IIT Kharagpur. Of course, I was Buddha compared to him. I was in his 70s. He came much later on. So we used to call our seniors, postgraduate students as Buddhas. So for him, I'm Buddha. But he's done wonderful. So thanks, Vijay, for joining us. I will quickly, I'll take 10 minutes of your time to actually make a presentation on nuclear fusion to set the context. And then we'll move ahead and we'll come back to each one of you. So let me share my screen. So, yeah, you should be able to see this screen. So I will make some introductory remark for our audience which may not be familiar. So basic aim of nuclear fusion is to bring sun and put it into a box. And as one of the scientists said long back, that this idea is great, but we don't know how to build this box. So the whole effort of our exercise is to build this box which can bring the sun to Earth. On the sun, actually, the temperature inside the core of the sun is about 15 million degrees centigrades. In Indian language, 1.5 crore degrees centigrade. And actually, it's hydrogen reaction that takes place. That is too slow for Earth because our volumes will be very less, mass will be less. So there are other reactions that are being considered, which are hydrogen isotopes like deuterium and tritium. That is the one that is most favored one, which can work at little bit less temperature, around 100 to 200 million degree Kelvin. The next one is deuterium-deuterium reaction. And third one is proton-boron reaction. Proton-boron reaction has a very distinct advantage of not using neutrons at all. So radioactivity is not at all involved. But that is a tougher one. what people are targeting is deuterium-tritium reaction. I'll not go into technical details today, but just to give an example, but the energy produced by 800 grams of deuterium and tritium is equivalent to 10,000 tons of coal. So you can understand the little amount of deuterium and tritium is equivalent to 10,000 tons of coal. To give it an example in terms of what we are familiar with, one bathtub of water with lithium in the battery that of a laptop, for example, is enough to house an average family, average family's house for 50 years. The approach to fusion, there have been a large number of different approaches. Just to show you this graph, I'm not going to go into details. So there are various different approaches that have been taken. But the two major approaches, one is using magnetic field to confine very high temperature plasmas. And second is using lasers, that's called inertial confinement. We are going to be discussing today is magnetic confinement. The leading device on the left side is tokamak device. Toroidal magnetic chamber is a Russian invention originally that came to limelight in 60s, although they were working from 1950s. Other one is accelerator of this kind. In fact, my own PhD work was somewhat combination of accelerator with another concept called magnetic mirrors that I had done in 1986 in University of California, Berkeley. This plot shows large number of devices that have been built across the world over last 40, 50 years. And this shows the variety of devices that have been tried in. This particular graph shows you the size of different devices. I'll just point out two devices. There's the East in the left bottom side, East in Chengdu in China, and then K-Star Korean machine. These two have achieved 100 million degree Kelvin. The Korean machine declared recently in, I think, December or November, and the Chinese machine about 2 years back. So they have achieved 100 million degree Kelvin, which is 6 times that of core of the sun. So much hotter than the core of the sun. What you're seeing the right side top is the ITER project that is being done by combined effort of multiple countries, including India, US, Europe, Japan, China, Russia, and so on. This is the largest device being built. This work, discussion on this started in 1985 between Reagan and Gorbachev, and then slowly it took a lot of time. Finally, 2007, the countries came together to build this. It is being built in France. India has built the largest component of this, the cryogenic vessel built by Larsen and Toubro, and that's already part of that been installed. This work is going to be completed towards the end of 2025, where they will see the first discharge, and then by 2035, they will actually have fusion reaction. Just to give you a comparison, so people have been talking about nuclear fusion for a long time, and we always joke that it is always 20 years away. So for last 60, 70 years, we have been talking about it, but we always say that's 20 years away. The 20 years remain. But if I put it in perspective, in this particular graph, in the red line, you have the Moore's law that all of us are familiar with, especially people working in semiconductor areas and computing areas. Parallel to that is the blue curve, which is called fusion figure of merit, triple product. I'll not go into technical details, but you can see that parallel to Moore's law, we have made progress. So actually, there has been tremendous progress in terms of fusion performance improvement. Let me come back to nuclear fusion program in India. Actually, when I was starting my PhD in US in around 1981, I got into nuclear fusion program out of very sudden decision that maybe I'll mention it sometime. Around the same time, nuclear fusion work was starting in India in early 1980s. The first machine, the tokamak, a very small device, was built in Science Institute of Nuclear Physics with the support of Toshiba in Japan. That was in 1987. I returned back to India in 1986, and I joined this institute right after my PhD. So I was involved with this machine for 9 years, from 1986 to 95. I was responsible for making sure that this starts to perform according to international standards. For that, actually, I had to move out from modeling and simulation, that was my area, into various experimental developments and so on. That was a very, very good learning experience. The second machine that was built is in the main nuclear fusion center of the country, that is Institute for Plasma Research in Gandhinagar, in west of India in Gujarat. This was called Aditya. Aditya is the name of the sun. And this was made operational in 1989. The performance was not very good. When I joined in 95, then I could get it to work. So I was project leader of this machine from 1996, early 1996 to till 2002 that I was there. This machine, after 25 years of operation, has been upgraded. And now it has a much better performance. Plus, they've added additional facilities. That has happened in the last 2 to 3 years. In mid-90s, number of countries started to work on superconducting machines, superconducting tokamaks. This all happened in Asia, actually, interestingly. India, China, Japan, and Korea. And we used to wonder that the whole fusion program is shifting to Asia. So SST-1 was planned in Gandhinagar, East in China, K-Star in Korea, and Japanese one was planned to be a very big machine that has just got assembled a couple of months back. Just to show a comparison with other 3 machines, because the Japanese machine has just been assembled. This is the SST-1 machine. This is a superconducting tokamak. This is the first one in the country. If I compare this to the other 2 machines in China and Korea, the Indian machine SST-1 focused, if I show you the time duration part, our focus was to achieve a very long duration of plasma of 1,000 seconds, more than 15 minutes. Compared to that, for example, Aditya was about 200 to 300 milliseconds, less than 1 second. Chinese machine also targeted 1,000 seconds, the Korean machine 300 seconds. The Indian machine was not targeting very high temperatures, only 10 million degree Kelvin, but the Chinese and the Korean machines were targeting about 100 million degree Kelvins. Out of the performance so far has been that both the Chinese and the Korean machines have declared 100 million they have achieved. In terms of duration, the Chinese machine East has declared about 102 seconds of operation as compared to 1,000 second plan, and Korean 72 seconds compared to 300 seconds plan. In comparison to that, the Indian machine still is far behind a schedule of 1,000 seconds. It's less than 1 second. I hope that shortly they'll start to perform much better. In terms of sizes of the machine, I was talking about ITER machine in the France. There's a joint European torus in Culham in UK. That is the one which has produced maximum fusion power of about 16 megawatt compared to 24 megawatt that was put in. This was in 1993. After that, they have not had a deuterium-tritium operation. Now only they are planning to do this. This JT60S, second one, is a Japanese one that has been assembled just recently. ITER one that is being built in France, I talked about. In another 5 years, it will be ready. And this is a demo machine that is supposed to be built, which will actually produce commercial prototype. This is just to show you a comparison of these. In the meantime, as the ITER project was being planned out from 2007 and the designs were done, there have been a number of technological advancements. One of the critical ones has been the high temperature superconducting material magnets, which not only allow you to operate the superconductors at a reasonably higher temperature. Of course, here high, I mean something like liquid nitrogen temperature, but also produce very high magnetic field. Similarly, advanced manufacturing techniques have come in, precision manufacturing come in, such as additive manufacturing. Extremely high power superconducting modelings have come in, artificial intelligence-based algorithms have come in. All of this has resulted in the possibility of this machine being built in a very small volume, and at the same time, you can do it in much smaller time and a much lower cost. So this has been a big game changer, high temperature superconducting magnets. So for example, MIT in US has a spin-off called Commonwealth Fusion Systems, and they're actually planning to move very fast and actually produce one machine which is called Spark that will be ready by 2025. They have done the testings of large bore high temperature superconducting magnets, and they plan to have a machine called ARC by early 2030s that will have similar performance to ITER that is planned. It much lower cost, much smaller size, 1/10 of the volume of ITER and much lower price and much less time to take. So probably before ITER starts to perform DT reaction, the ARC could be ready in 2030s with its own performance. In parallel, there have been efforts using other reactions of nuclear fusion. These are aneutronic, which does not involve neutrons at all, so it is completely free of radioactivity of any kind. And one of them is the proton-boron reaction that people are trying it out as well. There are other approaches to nuclear fusion. For example, one of the companies called TAE Technologies in near Los Angeles has been working for last 23 years actually, and they have also recently declared a lot of good advancements. Google has provided certain algorithms to them that has helped in this process. So AI has come in a big way, and they are building the next machine, Copernicus, which is supposed to be a good prototype for nuclear fusion. So this is the result of the optometrist algorithm that Google provided to TI Technologies. Due to all of this, over the last 10 years, investments in privately funded fusion ventures have grown. Just to give a list here, the top one I put India actually, as Akash declared on December 3, 2020. In 2021 early, we have started this work. From tomorrow onwards, our first employees are joining this project on March 1st. So we are progressing very fast on this. But you can see that number of companies across US, in Canada, in Australia, in UK have raised large amount of fundings as private investment. So this is a big change that has happened over the last 10 years, mainly because suddenly we're starting to see commercial utilization of nuclear fusion happening very fast. In addition to producing energy, we're also looking at producing medical isotopes. In fact, that's one of the goal of our project as well. Also, we are seeing possibilities of interstellar space propulsion using deep space for deep space purposes using nuclear fusion. So, Akash initiated this project, which I codenamed as Project Sunland. Sunland word in Sanskrit means fusion. So, nuclear fusion is called Napkiya Sunland in Hindi. This is the first private initiative of this kind in India, which actually aims to develop nuclear fusion technology at much cheaper cost compared to similar developments in Western countries. And our goal, as I mentioned, was to provide clean long-term energy solution, work on medical isotopes, as well as space propulsion. Parallelly in India, actually, government has started supporting space and atomic energy private initiatives. And this is, for example, an example of one of the companies which is taking advantage of this. So the number of private initiatives in space technology already happened in India, and some of them are making good progress as well. Parallelly, across the world, for example, US government is supporting nuclear fusion in a variety of ways. They have allowed national labs to cooperate with private industries so that they can transfer knowledge. This is the INFUSE program. US physicists had a lot of division among themselves as to which approach to use. So now the government actually asked them to sit together and work out a plan. So they've actually worked out a plan to which all the US physicists agree. US government is also has come out with policy documents to support this. UK government has come out with an ambitious plan for supporting nuclear fusion. So conclude my talk, the nuclear fusion has made progress along the line of progress we have seen in electronics and computer sector. It's not recognized as much. Private investment is growing. And as I mentioned that India has a chance to develop this at a much cheaper cost, just like we did in IT sector with global partnership for global markets. This is a momentous occasion for all of us. So this is the point at which I will end my talk, and then we will go over to have panel discussion with the experts that are around here. So thank you, Paul, Akash, and Vijay for joining again. I try to rush through the whole thing just to not take more of your time. But Akash, I would want you to first, since you initiated this whole activity, it was very surprise to me in October when you mentioned this. So I would want you to share some of your thoughts, what you have, what goes behind your thinking.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Professor Prabhat, for giving us privilege to be here. Yes, so we have been working on aerospace, developing satellite propulsion, and as we see the world is moving toward Mars. We thought having nuclear is a better option to really shorten the time duration that is required to reach Mars. So that was one of the principles that we thought we want to explore. And second is about since we work on the medical things, and if we look into imaging sciences, whether it's nuclear imaging or medical isotopes, they are in very short. Whether we look into molybdenum-99 or tactinium, and which is a byproduct of molybdenum, and it has a half-life of like 66 hours and 6 hours. So supply chain of these medical isotopes is also very limited, because it's being used for imaging cancers, cardiac, renal diseases. For children, it is on uh, bone metastasis. So these are the radioactive materials are highly used in industries to imaging the diseases, and it's always uh, so we lack those things because of the supply chain as well as the radioactive time. And then I thought, we definitely need to explore, and especially in India, India has been working on nuclear for almost 40 plus years, and we can definitely now start a private organization where we can, enhance the technology advancement, especially in nuclear fusion applications of it in energy creations, application in medical imaging, and in space exploration.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, it's a very bold and courageous step. And as you mentioned, medical isotopes are likely to be our first goal, short-term goal, which can be commercialized quickly. There's a tremendous shortage across the world, including in US, and even one of the reactors that produces this is likely to be shut down soon. So that's a very important one. I'll come to Paul. You have been great support all these months. As we were discussing that 6 months ago, we didn't know each other. We did not know that this program will be taking up. But suddenly, as you have been talking about, you have been reciting Urdu Shari and saying that it was God's willingness that has brought all of us together. And it's happening, it's moving fast. And I would want you to share some of your thoughts.
Thank you, Professor. Uh, this is completely a true blessing at the end of the day. We are all working together under the higher power, shall we say. There are no accidents in life. Everything is happening as it meant to happen. Um, the requirements, I think we know as a mankind for power is going to be going higher and higher with time. And the conventional ways of oil and gas and biofuels are there, but they're not going to be that clean, and that's going to be causing more pollution to the earth. So we know that from a limited information that we know, the fusion has a high potential of producing immense amount of power that's clean and that can really sustain the world for a long, long time. So when Akash mentioned to me, earlier last year, in the later part of last year, about this, we definitely showed some good interest. And with some of the contact that we have in the marketplace, both in the US and around the globe, we are very excited and we are honored to be part of the team with you. And we'll do our best, God willing, whatever is meant to happen, to make this into a success.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Actually, just to add to this, he's the one who's been bringing a lot of people from across the world to connect to this. He recently also contacted Carl Page, who is the brother of Larry Page, Google co-founder, to ask him to see if he can join this particular program. And Carl responded saying that he's very interested in this, although the time was very short. I think he gave him only few hours time. But he said that I'm very interested in what's happening. He's also made a suggestion that we should look at other aspect, that is using molten salt reactors and utilize thorium. And he says that this can be done very quickly in about 1 year's time and very good for India. So we look at that. That's of course using nuclear fission, and thorium India has tremendous reserve. So thank you, Paul, for bringing Carl into this whole activity. I think Vijay has got disconnected. So let's take the thing further, and then Vijay joins in, then we can have his comments. So actually, it's as I was mentioning, Paul, that the way I got into nuclear fusion was also not by any plan. I had planned to do PhD in the area of astrophysics and relativity, theory of relativity, and so on. And my interest was in black holes. 1981, when I got admission at University of California, Berkeley, it was on this basis. And surprisingly, when I was about to fly to US at the midnight, I was waiting, and one of my uncle who had come to see me off, he asked me this question that what kind of research work you're going to do. So when I was leaving the country, at that moment, something happened in my mind. And I don't know how it happened. I had never thought about it. I responded to him by saying that either I will work in nuclear fusion or in space sciences. And I had no plans, no thoughts on this. I didn't know even anything is happening in India. And surprisingly, then I went to US, and then actually I moved into nuclear fusion. And probably I became the first PhD from India in nuclear fusion. I came back, and then till 2002, I was full time in National Labs in India. I was a key person in the nuclear fusion project in India. And then I had a weak link with the nuclear fusion. I got busy with other things. Now, I've never expected that I'll come back to nuclear fusion again until Akash popped up this question that can we work on nuclear fusion again. So all of this has happened very suddenly. And as Paul has been telling, that's all God's grace that we are all together. So in terms of the area that we are looking at nuclear fusion, it's a very uncertain field. And the investments that you make in this are likely to, if at all, if there's any return, it may be after 15 years or 20 years, or it may be completely uncertain. So I would request Akash to throw some light. He's one of the major investors who started this. What thought you have? Because in India, it's very difficult to find people to invest in such kind of thing. They always look for quick returns. But you are a different person, and probably some thoughts from you as to this long-term investment in very high uncertain field. How do you get into this kind of thing?
Yeah, thank you. So as you mentioned about the Moore's law, so I mean, if you compare, semiconductor industry, which is also making, huge progress and beating the Moore's law, and same, in energy sectors also, nuclear is also moving, expanding and it's beating the Moore's law. I think, what we have seen research in nuclear fusion and fission as well, it's a great achievements in past, I would say, 1945 when it started. So it's a tremendous, and I think nuclear, it's going to be a key in getting energy, and not only energy. I think in the medical sciences, what we really need, it's going to empower. And of course, you're right that these are like long-term investments, but looking into the research as well as advancement, and I think we can definitely achieve that in India, as you mentioned about. So just not only just expansion of the technologies or materials, and there's innovations in superconducting materials. I think that has led to that. This is possibilities that if we make strong magnet and we can cool it also, that's possible to reduce the time of the making a commercial energy. So that's one of the key elements, that advancement in material science. And second is the advancement in imaging science in terms of the medical constraint, like where we are looking cancer from a different perspectives. If we have a better diagnostics, that can be achieved as well. So I think innovations is a key to drive a commercial energy as well as the medical field. Yeah.
Thank you. I will. There's a question by Mr. Santosh. Maybe you can put it on the screen again. It says, why choose nuclear fusion for clean energy? Isn't looking into renewable energy a better option? So actually, Santosh, there's a baseline energy that is required, and on top of that, renewable energy there. So right now, the baseline energy is powered by thermal power stations, some nuclear power stations based on fission, and some other sources. And top of that, you have renewable energy. So you need to have replacement for the baseline energy, and that's where the nuclear fusion comes in a big way, because we need to have that replacement to replace the coal, oil, and gas based systems which are based on fossil fuels. So we need something which will provide continuous clean energy, and that's where nuclear fusion is coming into that. Renewable energy are going to add on to that, but renewable energy resources also fluctuate, so that's why this nuclear fusion is considered as the source of future clean energy for a sustainable Earth. The reason why we are talking it today is because that the expectation was that nuclear fusion will not happen before 2060 commercialization. A few years back, as I was heading India's technology think tank, we were keeping track of all of this, and I'd given three scenarios. One was a business as usual scenario, which was that we'll achieve nuclear fusion in the normal way that things are progressing by 2060. The second one was most optimistic scenario, that was by 2035, and intermediate scenario by 2045. And now, fortunately, what we are seeing is that we are actually heading towards the most optimistic scenario. And then, of course, we can start to see scaling up happening between 2035 to 2045, where it starts to become a significant player, and then we'll keep on scaling up, so on. So let me come to, okay, Vijay has joined. Vijay has, he's a communication man, but his link has been a little unstable. Vijay, are you able to hear us? I think it's still frozen. Maybe the link is still poor. Yeah. So, Paul, you have supported investments in different variety of sectors. And what has been your experience compared to where do you see nuclear fusion? How do you think that, as compared to other areas that you have supported, investments? How do you see nuclear fusion? In fact, since you have also been in the energy sector as well as many other sectors, how do you see nuclear fusion from investment point of view?
I think, Professor, the thing is that there are many different kinds of energy sources. You have the geothermal that we're kind of involved with, whereby you have the solar, you got the wind, you got the biofuel, you got the oil and gas, you got the regular hydro part of it. They are all there. They all have certain components of it which are using Earth's natural resources anyway. In the long-term cases, we have to kind of come up with something that will not keep consuming Mother Earth, and come up with a fuel source that will be reliable, dependable, without too much radiation or hardly no radiation. That would be the ideal case. I think that's where the fusion seems to have good potential, because you're really combining the two atoms together to make the power from it. It's a matter of time. Obviously, it's not there today, quote unquote. Since you were at Berkeley, we are very closely have many family friends. My brother went to Berkeley, my nieces went there, our kids went to Cal. Have a lot of respect for that. And the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and the Shiva project that we was talked about in the 80s and whatnot has been, one of the cornerstones to take a look at about making power and energy that would be renewable, safe, and sound. So I think fusion has a huge potential. It's just a matter of time to harvest. That's why you got MIT working there, you got the British working there, you got the Korean, Japanese working there. Any new technology development is going to take time, but the paybacks will be for much, much longer time. So right. I think the question is well asked. So, it's a progression of time. 100 years ago, there was nothing on renewable. Now, because the requirements have changed, so mankind must continue doing the right thing to help all of us and the earth at the same time.
Sure. Thank you. There's a question by Kushal. Can we have that on the screen, please? Yeah. What can be the dangers associated with fusion power plants? So, as I was mentioning in my talk, there are two ways to produce energy. One is using something like deuterium tritium, which produces neutrons. Neutrons carry a lot of energy, and then you have to capture that neutron in something like lithium blanket. Other way is which does not involve neutrons at all, which is like I talked about proton boron. But it's easier to do deuterium tritium, so that's why we are targeting that. The dangers that, if we talk about dangers, it is not like nuclear fission. In the nuclear fission, what happens is that you have fissile material. Once you put a minimum critical mass together, it would start to produce energy. So our effort in nuclear fission is actually moderate that thing by putting moderators and to slow down that reaction. In case of some problem, we have seen few accidents happen over last few decades. That starts to explode because what you're trying to do is to you try to slow down the reaction rates. Left to itself, it has a tendency to explode because of tremendous chain reaction that takes place. In the nuclear fusion, actually, it's very difficult to get things working together, and there's a very small amount of fuel. We have to raise the temperatures to very, very high values, like 100 million to 200 million degree Kelvin. We already achieved 100 millions. We are now targeting 150 to 200 million degree Kelvin. China has come up with another machine that has got operational, and then other machines also targeting that. So there, actually, if anything happens, what would happen is that the machine will simply shut down, and there'll be no further reaction. So there's no danger other than a typical danger that you might have in an industrial situation. It is not going to be like a nuclear bomb explosion kind of thing. The only weak issue with radioactivity in nuclear fusion reaction is that the neutrons that escape, which do not get captured, you normally need about 1.2 meters of lithium blanket thickness to capture most of it, but there's always a chance of some amount of the neutrons escape through that, and they go and hit the structures. So over a period of time, they make it radioactive with a less, half-time, small half-time. It's not like thousands or 2,000 years. So what is expected that 25 years time, you may have to replace the structural elements. But these are, again, half-life is very less. The work is going on material side also to actually have come up with structures which will not suffer this problem. So in terms of radioactivity danger, it's very less. There's no chance of explosion of it in any kind. At the parallel, as I was mentioning, that proton-boron reaction does not involve neutrons at all. So that is going to completely say, but it's very difficult, but people are already working on that. There are a number of companies working on that area as well. So that was my response to that, the danger associated. Okay, there's another question, but I'll not take that. Let's see. Vijay, are you able to hear us now?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you very much, Professor Prabhat and Akash Bhai and Paul Bhai for inviting me. I just want to mention a couple of things because, first of all, fusion energy is going to be the most necessary requirement going 2030 onwards. Okay, even though you are targeting for 2045. So my question for your audience are two, and they will get a prize from me. Okay, I will send them the prize if you share the address with me for them. Okay, first question is how much energy they think will be required for the data centers. How much percentage of total energy generated globally? Okay, how much percentage part of that will be required globally just to meet the data center needs for the companies and for the users globally? That is my question number one. Second question is how much energy is going to be required to power all your vehicles? Okay, forget about your smart appliances and devices at home, right? Both the things I am asking is about your connectivity. One is your connectivity to social media, your social needs, your daily day-to-day needs where you order stuff from XYZ company, all the way to where you will be driving to meet your family, friends, or for some recreational or work-related purpose. So how much electricity after electric vehicles come into picture, and when the social media and all this online content so far as to say is going to be so prominent, and specifically we have seen at the time of COVID-19 how it is impacting. So if your audience gives me right answers for that, definitely I will be sending them some gifts the surprise gifts. They would like it. Okay, so that's the first thing. But this offer is available only for 24 hours. Okay, so, so so that is the first part, and then the second part I wanted to mention that from where are you going to bring this energy? Whatever is required, for the nature as well. You're seeing the impact of, what there's a saying. I don't like Winston Churchill as per se as a person, but he said something after Second World War. He said, if you sow the wind, you get the whirlwind. Okay, so I believe in the same thing. I think we have moved over from understanding from electrons to bosons, okay, and to string theory and whole nine yards, and we all are part of that. So my strong belief is that if not fusion energy, then what else? There is no way you can fulfill the need of power of human being. Society is growing, our needs are growing. It's not growing, it's not adding up, it's multiplying. Look at the power requirements of the globe. In 2007, I sat down with the WWE and Gartner to figure out how much requirement of energy is there, because I don't want to sound political here, but when the Obama administration came into power, they said that they want to close the mines for meeting the Kyoto Protocol, right? And they want to have more nuclear powered power stations. Okay, and there was a huge resistance because so many people are employed in mining of coal and every other fossil fuel, right? So I appeared in front of the conference, the Senate committee, and the reason was plain and simple. I used to work for Verizon, okay, and they found out that Verizon and AT&T in United States of America, two telecom company, are the biggest consumers of electricity. We were paying over $1 billion electricity bill a year. And they said, okay, you need to either reduce it or you put your own power plants. We are not going to, give you any power whatsoever in long run. So this is going to happen all across the world. As the digitalization happens, as more and more, we become dependent on technologies. People can talk about AIs and MLs and all those things, but you turn off the power and you are in the Stone Age back again. So my just a few cents are that Professor Ranjan, hats off to you that you are concentrating on to this technology and looking at it from a perspective of applied science rather than just a theoretical science that it was considered until a few years ago. So that's very encouraging. Mr. Singh and Mr. Mahal, both of them are supporting it, and I can tell you that if this technology is going to come out from anywhere, it is going to come out from India. Like you rightly mentioned, you have named it in such a way, the project, that it's related to SYL, Sanskrit, and how we devise the zero and so on. So I have a firm belief in that, and hats off to you and to your team. And wherever we can support it, we are always available to support it, because this is not only from a financial perspective that makes sense, but it's more from a humanity perspective that makes sense, where you reduce the dependence on fossil fuel, you reduce the dependence on any other means of power generation, and harness what nature has already given you. So thank you very much for inviting me to all three of you.
Actually, this is a very important comment. because people are not realizing the amount of energy that is needed to, like you mentioned about data centers or electric vehicles. They think it's coming out of nowhere. There is a huge amount of energy requirement, and that was an important point that you made. And I think the other important point that is very important is that today India is in a position to take these bold steps. And that is a change that I'm seeing. Unlike 20 years back when IT or IT services based companies were coming up, now we are starting to see investments in hardcore sectors of space, atomic energy, and so on. So that's a very crucial part. And people like who have been in front of large investments, I think you have mentioned that 120 $130 billion cumulative value. So you're been involved with huge businesses. In fact, 1.3 billion is the rough population of India. So but $100 per person. That's the kind of thing we have dealt with. So actually, India and Indians, if I take the whole global diaspora together, are poised to actually go into areas that we have never thought possible today. But just to correct one thing, we're not targeting 2045 actually. We're expecting that in 10 years' time, 2030, we'll see net energy production in fusion reactors, and by 2035, commercial prototype ready. And then from 2035 to 2045, it will scale up. So, from 1 to 2 to 10 to 100 or 1,000, it will scale up. So that's the expectation we are seeing. But of course, all of this is very uncertain. But that's what we are seeing. There are a few comments trying to answer your questions. You can see on the right side of your screen in the comment section.
Okay.
That some of them are right. We can pick them up for sure. So both Paul and Akash are short of time, and one of the things that the medical isotope thing I wanted to bring was that due to short half-life times, the supply chain is very difficult. You cannot have it being produced somewhere in the globe and then supply it everywhere. US itself uses half of the medical isotopes, and they didn't have till recently production centers. India, when we found out, most of the hospitals actually do not have supplies of this very irregular supply. So most of the time they try to do something else, not the best that is possible. So I think what medical isotope, our goal would be actually to set up small production centers which can produce these isotopes close to the consumption center. That would be our goal. So we want to actually use nuclear fusion in two ways. One is to produce energy as an energy source, and other is a neutron source. So do you think that in next 4 or 5 years we should be able to, or even earlier than that, we should be able to commercialize this medical isotope business? What do you think, Akash?
Yeah, absolutely. This is possible, right? So I think that's our vision also, to come up with a neutron generator where we can generate these neutrons and harness it. And as we talked earlier about that, molybdenum 99 that is being used for imaging, and how we see X-ray in airports and taking the images. So I think when we have nuclear imaging, you can really see much more detailed of an object. This can be applied in airports and other surveillance as well. But we are targeting more from the medical science. As you said that molybdenum, it has like 66 hours of the half-life. So yeah, so these reactors need to be very near to the hospitals, where we can really supply, because we cannot store it. It decays, and it decays to titanium, which has a half-life of 6 hours. So looking into supply chain problem, yes, so our reactors will be very compact, and we have not only just one reactors in Pune that we are looking into, but it will be in different places in India, where we can have good logistic systems where we can supply molybdenum, and really take the medical imaging science to really next level. Not only just applying into cancer imagings or cardiac, and looking into disease from a different perspective, right? Because if you take X-rays, CTs, MRIs, those are more from structural side of it, but we can really enhance all the perfusions, how a tissue behaves. I think it's a great science that we can endeavor. Yes.
Thank you. One more point I wanted to bring up is that when we work on such projects, the number of spin-offs happen. If I look at one of the key technology area, that is high temperature superconducting magnets, not only for nuclear fusion, it's very important for many other technologies like maglev trains, MRI machines, even turbines and so on. So do you think, Paul, especially this question is for you, is that when you have such long-term projects of 15 years, 20 years, the number of spin-offs that happen, they can actually become a major revenue earners even before your main goal is achieved. Do you think that kind of thing would be possible, that the spin-offs will start as we start to work on high temperature superconducting materials, and that will lead to revenue generation even earlier than we target for the energy purpose?
Well, Professor Ranjan, I think those things can definitely take place, but you definitely need a core to begin with. And just like semiconductor industry, for the industry to become what it is now, it's been what, about 50, 70 years, give and take. There are many, many subsectors that come out of it, and there are many thousands and thousands of people employed servicing the industry. Same thing in the fusion. As you start to put the pieces together, there'll be 10, 20 different subsectors of it, and some of them will start to, make some financial gains out of that. But the product itself has to become viable. It has to produce the energy. Output of energy must be higher than the input. Basically, simple stuff. And once that is done, then yes, it will start to grow. Tomorrow, every country in the world would have 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, who knows how many reactors. You can see how it will exponentially become a major piece of the equation. Right now, the most expensive and complex industry in the world has been semiconductor industry. It takes between maybe right now close to $10 billion to put up new fab. So there's hardly any people or companies in the world who are doing that, very few of them. So in this case, at least depending upon what the cost structure would look like when the unit is put together, the size of the unit and the cost, those will be the driving factors. But before that, the technology itself. You're working on a very critical part of the technology. If it becomes all viable, looks like there's some good signs that it's going to have a heartbeat very soon, then it's a matter of scaling and then making viability on that. The other question you brought up earlier was the manpower, the team. I think India definitely has very strong, competent, reliable, dependable people all across the globe, both on the technology side, on financial side, brain power side, except most of the time they were all coming outside India around the globe to doing what they were doing. But now India over time is doing very well, and they are all available to help, no matter where we are, to make the project successful. Because fusion project, although it's being done by your group, but it is for the mankind. Fusion power is not only for India, it's for the mankind. So everybody at the end of the day will be able to benefit from it.
Sure. Thank you. Actually, this point of manpower, actually, I remember a very interesting incident. Around 1984, I was in Berkeley. I was waiting for a bus to go to Lawrence Berkeley lab for my research work. And suddenly a car stopped. A gentleman asked me where I was going. And I said that I'm going to LBL. He said that, why don't you come along, I'll drop you. I said, okay, fine. And then he suddenly asked me, are you willing to join my company? I have an IT company. He had not talked to me. He didn't know who I was. But just recognizing me as an Indian, he thought that I'll be good in a computer sector. That was in 1984. So one of my concerns that was there when Akash suggested this project was can we get the right kind of manpower in this? But I'm very happy to report that we have seen tremendous response of very well qualified people. Reason has been the last 40 years that India has worked in nuclear fusion and been part of the ITER project. Huge manpower has been generated with very good expertise. And that's been a good surprise to me. So Vijay, actually, you have worked in large projects in abroad, and you came back to India to contribute to the country. Two questions. One is that this point about manpower, the qualified manpower. The second point is the policy level issues that we might face for nuclear fusion. especially on a government level. A couple of comments. So one is the quality of manpower, and second is the policy level issues that you think may be required or you think may need to be changed. These are the two issues.
No, absolutely. Very right questions. And I read the comments also, and I will comment on that as well. Okay. So for me, it's three questions. So first question, let me answer about the manpower. We are the people who believe in Jugaad. Okay. Please don't mind my choice of word. Okay. We are the people who believe in Jugaad, who wants to make things happen. So to make us process oriented, where you need a lot of skillful following up of standard operating procedure and all, it takes time, but it doesn't mean that we don't have that skill. So I will go back, I'll give an example. I always, I moved back to US quite in Canada quite early, and everyone used to ask me the same question. They said, how come you guys are so good in IT and not in machinery and everything else? And I used to just tell them, because we are lazy. Because we are lazy. We want to bring efficiency to the system. That's all we can do. We cannot do anything else. If you want us to bring efficiency to the system, we'll bring it to you. But if you want us to do some mundane thing over and over again, then it's difficult for us as a DNA. The reason being, 5,000 years ago, we got civilized. Okay, we never had to, face the wrath of weather. We had, Gangetic plains, and we had, Kaverian plains, and we used to just sow whatever you want to sow, and then spend most of the time in literature, education, culture, and all those things. So we never had to do all that hardship to harvest, 3 times in a year when there is snow and, and other things. So we are, by DNA, we are lazy people. Okay. And I accept it. I have no issue in that. And I think that makes us efficient. That makes us more efficient. And that makes us, to know where we can, reduce and remove unnecessarily required, systems or solutions. And that's where we are very, humble and very successful in ISRO. Look at that, right? We produce our satellites at 1/10 of the cost, because I blame it on our efficiency, on our laziness, but people might disagree with me. So I think we have all the capabilities to do it. We have all the knowledge, skill set to do it. Look at all the universities globally. You want to apply for the main research fund, you will have at least out of 5 top researchers or professors, 2 of Indian origin. Okay, that says it all. So skill set is not a problem. It's a problem of harvesting it, as you rightly said earlier. That is the first answer. Second thing, you talked about, the comments. I will just tell you, all your audience, okay, they are talking about it takes 20% for the vehicles and 1 to 2% for data centers. Both are absolutely wrong. But still, I will send them something as long as they research on it and send me their addresses. So that is there. And third thing I want to talk about is,
Policy.
the feasibility. Hello, sorry, go ahead, Professor sir. You were saying something?
Policy, government level policy support, I was talking
about. Yes. So that comes in the feasibility. Okay. So I can design a rocket today, but what good it is if it doesn't meet the regulatory requirement? And somebody talked about Chernobyl accident and Fukushima accident and all those things. So all those fall into the purview of the government. how they regulate it, okay, how they ensure that this technology is available at the same time, it's not, barred. Sometimes we become over excited about security. But let me ask you one thing. Some of the people who have commented on it, on the accidents and regulatory policies combined with it. Okay, I want to ask one question. My parents live in Delhi. Okay, my father never smoked even a cigarette in his whole life, but by staying in Delhi, he is smoking like two packs of cigarette without even he wanting it. So you want a slow death, or you want to take precautions and safety measures? So things happen. You die in a car accident as well. So many people will blame me for my comments for this. But all I'm saying is, look at how many nuclear plants have been there, and how many incidents has happened, and how many energy it has saved, and how much pollution it has saved over a period of time. So we need to look at cost benefit. We need to look at life versus the accidents. And things can go haywire anywhere. Okay, even at your home, a fan can fall down. It can happen. It happens many times, right? So let's not be very gun shy, as I said, okay, in US terms, for everything we want to do. And from regulatory perspective, I think this is the time when we should put our foot down, define the whole standard for it, that how the whole overall nuclear fusion energy is going to be generated for public purpose, for power generation purpose, and everything. And I am pretty sure that see, I have been talking to many people in the energy department and so on, and I can assure you, okay, this government wants progressive India with the right policies, and we should lead on this. Today there is no standard. Today there is no standard established on how the whole energy is going to be generated. What should be the security parameters? What should be the cost of it? What should be the insurance surrounding it? How far it should be from the public places? Whether it can be in secluded places, or it can be harnessed in right in the center of the city. Okay, today all those things are not defined. So I think this is the time where we should take the leapfrog and should lead the world in defining it, because see, nobody has anything more at stake in this than India. And I tell you the reason why. Because 70% of our trade deficit today is because of fuel. Okay, 70% of our trade deficit is today because of fuel. If you are solving this problem, okay, and you are bringing in new technology, you are bringing in right technology that takes away all those issues, then I think, again, I will say that is something that you are doing more contribution than anyone else can do to this country. You are taking away that 70 to 80% of the requirement. And believe me, I have been in discussion in many of the royalties in the Middle East. Okay, they all are scared to death. They all are scared to death that the moment electric vehicles come into picture, and some energy source like fusion technology comes in, they will be beggar countries. They don't have any of their other means to survive. Look at when the petroleum prices crashed, what happened to their economies,
Right,
right?
right.
So everyone is looking at it, and the initiative you have taken, and the time and energy and the years you have spent in this, I think those are very, very critical for this country and for humanity. Again, I don't look at it as a country perspective. I look at it as a humanity perspective, because we need to get rid of all this fossil fuel as soon as possible. So,
Vijay bhai,
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay, for your comments.
sorry, I answered very long, but I am very emotional about energy. So please, sincere apologies of taking everyone else's time on the panel.
Not at all. I think we have already run out of time. I just wanted to make a quick comment that when I was in Berkeley, the professors used to say that Indians are very good in mathematics. So they would not ask us mathematics questions. They knew that we can answer them. So they tried to answer.
You're right.
Paul, as we run out of time, any last comments from you?
just a quick one, I think, to address what Vijay was mentioning and whatnot. The oil and gas companies and countries around the globe obviously are concerned. I had the pleasure of meeting with Dr. Charles Holiday from the chairman of the board of Shell. I think a few years ago he'd come to the Bay Area. And they said, Paul, yes, we are oil gas company, but nonetheless, we are very, very open and looking at other technologies and other areas to invest because we know our future is coming to the end. So we must invest in many, many renewable, any other source of energy that would be meaningful for us. That's one part of it. The second part, although we talk about Indians doing all this stuff, we as a team, all of us are very open to working with anybody and everybody around the globe. It is not about India. It is about the whole mankind. America,
Absolutely.
Europe, Middle East. We just want to be very careful in our statement that we are, although Indian descent, all of us, but we are completely 100% in sync to work with any soul, anyone who want to be part of it to help us, because the issue is as a whole globe, we are trying to help the whole globe. And India is not separate from the globe. We are all one family and request the universe to help us all attain that success, whatever that's meant to be. Whatever happens will be good. That's all we know.
Thank you, Paul. That's a very important statement. So it's not that we are working for India, it's for the whole globe and for the humanity. And India always believed in Vasudev Kutumbakam, the whole world is a family. And that's something very important that you pointed out, that we are open to work with any entity. Oil and gas is very interested in this area. They're investing money in this. So we welcome their participation as well. Akash, your last comments, but I also wanted to mention that Akash is also supporting an effort, again, that it can change the world actually, is to solve chronic health problems. And that's another project that we have taken up with support of Akash. And maybe another time we'll come back on this. But any last comments, Akash, from your side before we close?
Yeah, so this is a very exciting time. So we will do an investment in innovation and research, even though the timeline looks very long, 10-15 years, to gain the energy power. We call it as Q is equal to 2, where you have input power is less than the output power. We want to make more energy than what we put in. I think that would be our vision to really take it. And as we also talked here, that there will be many sub projects coming out of it, and we are keen to hear from others what all areas we can work on, and we are open to establish our plants in many different places and countries, and we look forward for more scientists and engineers who can help and join our team. Yeah.
So thank you so much. I think we will stop here, but I would like to assure you that the university, the Vice Chancellor I am, we have set up this university only 3 years ago, but our task was to actually be a real research university. And I'm glad that this is all happening in this university, with the nuclear science university. Of course, the experimental facilities will be setting up nearby. Chronic health problem also will be starting. I'm personally involved in that as well. And in the chronic health problem, also I have a large number of people from all over the world who have joined that effort, including doctors from US, Swamiji from Rishikesh, who is also a doctor himself, and many others who have participated. So we believe that the time is right, that we should be able to solve problems facing humanity and society in general. And I would like to thank my university management for supporting all of this. So thanks to all of you for joining. Thanks to the audience. I hope we will come back with another program. Thanks so much. Goodbye.
Thank you. May God bless everyone.